Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world one book at a time.
It's great to be here.
Today, we are walking into the kitchen, opening that cabinet under the sink, and staring directly into the abyss.
Trash can.
We are talking about trash, garbage, the stuff we spend our entire lives, trying to get rid of.
It's the most mundane part of our existence, isn't it? You finish a yogurt, you toss the cup, you open a package, you toss the wrapper. It's just a reflex.
Right. And frankly, I feel like I'm pretty good at it. I have the
Yeah.
blue bin. I rinse my jars. Well, mostly I break down the boxes. I feel like I'm a responsible citizen of the modern world.
Mm-hmm.
But the book we're covering today, Year of No Garbage by Eve O. Schaub, suggests that my feeling of responsibility might actually be part of the problem.
And that's the central tension we are going to explore. We are conditioned, really, to believe that waste is a personal failure.
Yeah.
If the planet is drowning in plastic, it's because you didn't sort your recycling correctly, or you forgot your reusable tote bag at the grocery store.
It's the be a better person model of saving the planet.
Exactly. But Schaub's investigation, her whole year-long experiment, it reveals that this isn't a failure of personal virtue. It's a problem that's been engineered at the system level.
So the question we're asking today is,
Yeah.
what?
Why do modern societies produce such staggering amounts of waste? And maybe more importantly, why is doing the right thing so nearly impossible within the current infrastructure?
Okay, so just to be clear up front, this isn't going to be an hour of us telling you how to, make your own toothpaste or fit a year's worth of trash into a tiny mason jar.
No.
Because I have seen those Instagram influencers, and I got to say, that is not my life.
No, absolutely not. And Schaub actually tries to do that, and as we'll see, it nearly destroys her sanity.
Right.
We are not here to judge lifestyle choices. We're here to look at the patterns, the structures. We want to understand how the system is designed to ensure disposability and then, shift all the heavy lifting onto you, the end user.
And the stakes here are,
Yeah.
they're a lot higher than just having a messy house or a full garbage can.
Oh, much higher. We're talking about global infrastructure. We're talking about corporate profit incentives, public policy. We're talking about a system that effectively turns fossil fuels into permanent pollutants that end up in our bloodstreams.
Wow.
This is about the very design of the material world we all live in.
So let's introduce our guide on this journey, Eve O. Schaub. She's not a waste management engineer, right? She's not a chemist. Who is she?
No, she's an investigator of modern life. That's how she describes herself. She's a memoirist. You might know her from her previous book, Year of No Sugar.
Right, where she cut out all sugar for a year.
Exactly. She has this history of taking on these extreme self-imposed constraints to reveal the hidden societal norms that we all just swim in without realizing it.
It's kind of like being a stunt pilot for social norms. She crashes into the walls so we can see where they are.
That is a great way to put it, yeah. She even calls herself the Watson to the mystery, not the Sherlock. She's just the one asking the really obvious questions that nobody else is asking.
And because this book is a memoir, it gives us something that, like, a policy paper can't.
It gives us the ground-level user experience. By attempting to completely opt out of the system, by saying, I'm going to produce zero trash, she hits every single invisible wall, every design flaw.
And her central thesis is pretty confrontational. She basically argues that trash, as we know it, is a modern invention, and that the systems we trust, like recycling, are largely a mirage.
It's a heavy claim. But when you start peeling back the layers, as she does, piece by agonizing piece, you realize that the garbage crisis isn't caused by careless consumers. It is caused by a system that is specifically designed for disposability.
So let's start with that first big insight, because I think it breaks a lot of people's brains. It kind of broke mine. You said trash is a modern invention. But humans have always had stuff. We've always eaten food. We've broken things. Surely we've always had trash.
Not in the way we understand it today, not this permanent, valueless material. Schaub takes us back to the 19th century to look at the circularity of that era. And it wasn't circular because they were trying to be, eco-friendly.
No, they weren't worried about their carbon footprint.
Not at all. It was circular by necessity. Everything had value.
So what did that actually look like?
Well, picture New York City in the 1880s. It was dirty, sure. There was horse manure everywhere. There was coal ash. But there wasn't garbage in the sense of, like, a permanent, useless material that you bury forever.
Okay.
Food scraps, for instance, were collected by swill children.
Swill children. That is a very vivid Dickensian term.
It is, isn't it? And these kids would collect the food waste from households and sell it as fertilizer or as feed for pigs out in the countryside. It was a resource.
It's had a market.
It had a market. Bones were boiled down for glue. Old grease and fat became soap or candles. Rags were a crucial input for the paper industry. Everything had a second, third, or even fourth life.
And there was basically no packaging.
Almost none. You bought oats from a barrel, you put them in your own cloth sack, and you took them home. The sack was reused until it fell apart, and then, it was used as a cleaning rag.
So the whole concept of single use just didn't exist.
It was anathema to them. It would have seemed insane. Why would you throw away a resource? But then, after World War II, we invented disposability. We shifted to a linear model.
The take, make, waste model.
Exactly. Take resources from the earth, make something, use it for 5 minutes, and then bury it in a hole in the ground forever.
There's a moment in the book that I found really funny, but also deeply, deeply sad. She's early in the experiment, and she's trying to figure out the rules for her family.
Yeah.
And she finds this tiny little rock on the floor of her house.
The rock story. This is a perfect illustration of the psychological shift she's going through.
Yeah, she picks up this tiny piece of gravel that, probably fell out of a shoe tread or something. And her immediate instinct, just pure muscle memory, is to walk to the trash can and throw it away.
And then she just freezes.
She stops and thinks, wait, why am I throwing a rock in the garbage?
A rock is part of the earth. It's nature. Why would you wrap it in a plastic bag and send it to a landfill to be entombed for eternity?
It sounds totally insane when you say it out loud like that, but I do that. I sweep the floor, there's dust and dirt, and maybe a dried leaf that blew in, and it all goes in the bin.
That is what she calls the tossing. It's a form of magical thinking we've all been trained in.
Right.
We have been taught to believe that when we throw something away, it actually goes away. It just vanishes.
But Schaub's experiment proves that away does not exist.
Away is just a place. Away is a hole in the ground where we bury things, or it's a giant furnace where we burn them. Those are the only two options. There is no magical void where matter ceases to exist.
Okay, but hold on. I'm going to play the skeptic here for a minute. I know landfills are bad. I get that. And I know burning stuff is bad. But that's why I recycle. I have the blue bin. I put my plastic bottles, my cardboard, my glass jars in there. The truck comes every Tuesday. I see them take it. Are you really telling me that's all fake? Because that starts to feel like a conspiracy theory.
It's not that it's fake, it's that it's broken by design. Schaub dives deep into the reality of single-stream recycling.
Right.
And that's the system most of us have now. You just put all the materials, paper, plastic, metal, glass, into one big bin.
Which is great, honestly. I remember when we had to separate everything into different bins. It was a pain. Single stream makes it so much easier.
It makes it convenient. And that is the trap.
A trap.
The whole system prioritizes consumer convenience and participation over actual functional utility. By allowing you to throw everything in one bin, participation rates go way up, people feel good. Municipalities can say, look, 80% of our residents are recycling.
But the contamination skyrockets.
Exactly. Contamination. You mentioned leaving peanut butter in the jar?
Yeah, guilty.
That's part of it. A greasy pizza box. That's another classic. But think about the mechanics of the truck itself.
What do you mean?
So you have a glass jar sitting next to a cardboard box in your bin. The truck comes, picks up the bin, and dumps it in the back. Then a compactor arm comes down and crushes it all together to make more room.
Oh.
The glass shatters. Now you have thousands of tiny, sharp shards of glass embedded in the fibers of that cardboard box.
Okay, I see the problem. That doesn't sound good.
It's a disaster. When that bale of recycled cardboard gets to the paper mill, they can't use it. The glass will destroy their very expensive machinery. So that entire bale of what you thought was recycling gets rejected.
And sent to the landfill.
By mixing everything together for our convenience, we degrade the value of everything. We ruin the clean streams of material.
So because I wanted the convenience of one bin, I actually ruined the paper recycling.
Effectively, yes. But it's not your fault. The system is designed that way. But let's talk about the plastic itself, because even if it arrives perfectly clean, there is a massive misunderstanding about what actually happens to it.
Okay.
You put a plastic water bottle in the bin. What do you think happens to it next? What's the story in your head?
I assume it gets melted down and turned into a new plastic bottle. Bottle to bottle, a closed loop.
That is the dream. That is the circular economy we were sold in commercials. But the reality for plastic is almost always downcycling. Yeah, plastic is not like glass or aluminum. You can melt an aluminum can and make a new aluminum can basically an infinite number of times, and it's still high-quality aluminum.
Right.
But plastic is a polymer. It's made of these long chemical chains. Every time you heat it up to remelt it, those polymer chains get shorter, the material gets weaker, more brittle, it loses its quality.
So you can't really make a new bottle out of an old bottle?
It's very difficult and very expensive, and you usually have to add a lot of new virgin plastic to the mix anyway. So what usually happens is that old bottle becomes something of lower quality, like a park bench or the fuzzy fleece for a jacket or carpet backing.
Which, I mean, that's still okay, right?
Yeah.
At least it's being used for something.
It's being used one more time, but it's a one-way street. What happens to the carpet when you renovate your house? What happens to the fleece jacket when it wears out?
It goes in the trash.
You can't recycle a park bench, it goes to the landfill. Downcycling just delays the trip to the dump by one product generation. It's a temporary detour on the road to the landfill.
And that's the best case scenario for plastic.
That is the absolute best case. The hard facts that Schaub uncovers are just staggering. The U.S. recycling rate for plastic has dropped to somewhere between 5 and 6%.
5 to 6%.
4 to 6.
So 95% of the plastic we produce and use is just,
Yeah.
trash. It's not being recycled.
Correct. The vast, vast majority of what well-meaning people like you put in that blue bin is ultimately landfilled or incinerated because it is simply too expensive to sort, clean, and process. The market for it just isn't there.
This is the part I just don't get. If it's too expensive to recycle, and we know it's all just ending up in landfills, why are we making so much of it in the first place?
Yes.
Why is every single cucumber shrink-wrapped in plastic? Why is every toy encased in that hard clamshell packaging you need a chainsaw to open? If the market doesn't want the recycled plastic, why does the market want all this new plastic?
This is the aha moment of the book. This is the big reveal. And to understand it, we have to leave the kitchen, leave the grocery store, and we have to go to the oil fields.
Okay.
We have to connect the plastic crisis directly to the fossil fuel industry.
Walk me through this. I know plastic is made from oil, generally speaking. That's the basic idea.
It's often made from ethane, specifically. Ethane is a natural gas liquid that comes out of the ground as a byproduct of hydrofracking.
Fracking. Okay, so we're drilling for natural gas to heat our homes and run power plants.
Exactly. And during the fracking boom of the last decade or so, they started producing enormous quantities of this byproduct, ethane. Now, for the drillers, ethane is a problem. It's highly volatile. You can't just pump it into the main natural gas pipeline that goes to people's houses because it burns too hot. It would literally blow up people's stoves.
So for them, it's a waste product, a dangerous waste product.
It is. For a long time, they would just flare it off. You know, you see those flames at the wellheads burning 247. That's often them just burning off this excess gas.
But that looks bad, and it's wasteful.
Exactly. So the industry needed a way to monetize it. They needed to turn this waste stream into a profit stream. And they figured out that if you build these massive multi-billion-dollar facilities called cracker plants, you can crack the ethane molecule under high heat and turn it into ethylene.
And ethylene is
The primary building block of most plastic, polyethylene.
So, wait, hold on. Are you saying that the reason we have so much plastic packaging isn't because we, the consumers, demanded it?
Precisely. Schaub explains that as the world starts to move, however slowly, toward electric vehicles and renewable energy, the fossil fuel industry is terrified.
Right.
They are looking at a future where the demand for gasoline and oil for combustion engines drops off a cliff. They need a plan B to maintain their profits and their very existence.
And plastic is plan B.
Plastic is their lifeboat. Industry projections, their own documents, show that they plan on tripling plastic production by 2050.
Tripling it.
That massive increase is not driven by you asking for more shrink-wrapped vegetables at the store. It is driven entirely by the supply side. There is a glut of cheap ethane that needs a market. So they create the market. They flood the world with cheap, brand new, virgin plastic.
That completely flips the narrative in my head. I always thought companies used plastic because it was what we wanted. You know, the customer's always right. But you're saying they use it because the raw material is essentially a dirt cheap waste product from fracking.
It is a supply-driven crisis that is brilliantly masked as a demand-driven convenience. And this is why the recycling market is dead. Virgin plastic is now cheaper to buy than recycled plastic because of this ethane glut.
Wow.
So why would a company pay extra for your old, dirty, contaminated bottles to be collected and reprocessed when they can buy pristine, brand new plastic pellets made from fracked gas for pennies?
They wouldn't. It makes no economic sense.
None whatsoever. And so the recycling facility, the MRF, can't sell its bales of sorted plastic because nobody wants to buy them.
And the cities, the municipalities, are caught in the middle.
They're stuck. They have to keep collecting the blue bins because we, the voters, expect it and demand it, but they have nowhere to send the material. So it piles up in warehouses, or it gets quietly trucked to the landfill or the incinerator, often at a huge cost to taxpayers.
This makes the consumer feel incredibly small and powerless. It feels like we're just walking into a trap every single time we go shopping.
It is a trap.
Which leads us to what Schaub calls the complexity trap. She describes this descent into madness, just trying to understand what she can and cannot recycle.
It is designed to be confusing. It benefits the producers for it to be confusing. Think about the symbols. We all see the chasing arrows triangle, the Mobius loop.
Yeah.
When you see that on a package, what does your brain immediately say?
It says recyclable. It says, good job, you bought the right thing. Put this in the blue bin.
But if you look closer, inside that triangle, there's a number, 1 through 7.
The resin identification code.
Right. And here's the thing. That number was never, ever intended for consumers. It was an industry code created in the 1980s to help workers at sorting facilities identify what type of plastic resin something was made from.
So it doesn't mean recyclable.
It has nothing to do with whether it's recyclable in your town. It just identifies the chemical formula. But the plastic industry fought to put it inside the recycling symbol.
That feels incredibly intentionally misleading.
It is. It's a masterpiece of misdirection. Schaub finds that there are literally thousands of different chemical variations of plastic, but only 7 numbers to categorize them.
And of those 7, which ones actually get recycled?
Realistically, only numbers 1 and 2, that's your PE soda bottles and your HDPE milk jugs, have any kind of reliable, stable market for recycling. They are the only ones that actually get turned back into something useful with any frequency.
So what about the rest? The yogurt cups, which are usually number 5, the clamshells from the salad bar, the squeezy bottles.
Numbers 3 through 7 are, for all practical purposes, just trash. But because they have the symbol on them, you throw them in the bin.
That's wish cycling.
That is the definition of wish cycling. You wish it could be recycled, you hope it can be, so you toss it in.
Yeah.
But all you're really doing is contaminating the actually valuable stuff, like the aluminum cans and the paper.
And then there are the new labels, the how-to recycle labels.
Oh, yeah.
They're these little square ones you see on packaging now. They look so authoritative and helpful.
They do. They have clear instructions. They seem great.
But they often say things like, empty and replace cap, or check locally.
Check locally. That is my favorite euphemism in this entire landscape.
What does that actually mean?
It means we, the multi-billion-dollar corporation that made this, have absolutely no idea if it can be recycled where you live, and it probably can't be, so good luck.
It just puts the burden of research entirely on you.
Who is going to do that? Are you really going to go to your town's Department of Public Works website, assuming they even have one that works, and look up their esoteric list of accepted polymers to find out about a single yogurt cup?
No, I'm making lunch for my kids. I have 30 seconds.
Of course not. So you just toss it in the bin and hope. And then there's the other instruction, store drop-off. This is for plastic film.
Right, the bread bags, the Amazon mailers, the plastic wrap around a case of water bottles.
All that thin, crinkly stuff.
And I have done this. I dutifully collect all the bags, I stuff them into one big bag, and I drive them to the grocery store entrance where they have that special collection bin. I feel very virtuous when I do that.
You are doing all the work the system tells you to do, but Schaub investigates this too, and it is just heartbreaking. She finds that those store drop-off bins are often used as trash cans by people walking by. They're full of coffee cups and banana peels and just garbage.
So the whole load is contaminated and ruined.
Often, yes. But even if it's perfectly clean, the capacity of the system to actually recycle that film is minuscule. She finds data suggesting less than 5% of that material is ever actually reprocessed.
So where does the other 95% go?
Landfill, incinerator, or it gets balled up and shipped overseas. It is a system designed purely to make you feel like there is a solution, so you keep buying the bread in the plastic bag without feeling guilty.
It's a pressure valve for consumer guilt.
That is exactly what it is. It's a psychological off-ramp. If you really believe there is no solution, you might stop buying it. Or you might demand that the store sell bread in paper packaging again. But if you think, oh, I can just drop this off at the store, the consumption continues and the system is safe.
Okay, so what about the stuff that claims to be even better? The stuff that claims to be actively green? Schaub spends some time on bioplastics, PLA. I see this at coffee shops all the time now. The cup looks and feels like plastic, but it says compostable, made from corn.
The green mirage. This is one of the most frustrating parts of her whole investigation. PLA, polylactic acid, is technically compostable. That's not a lie. But here's the giant asterisk, the fine print.
What's the catch?
It is only compostable in a large-scale industrial composting facility that reaches very high sustained temperatures for a long period of time.
So if I throw it in my backyard compost pile with my apple cores and coffee grounds?
It will sit there for 100 years, basically unchanged. It will not break down.
Okay. And what happens if I accidentally put it in the regular recycling bin with the normal plastics?
It acts as a contaminant. It has a different chemical makeup and a different melting point than PT plastic, the #1 stuff. So if a PLA cup gets mixed into a batch of PT bottles, it can ruin the entire batch of what would have been good recycling.
So it's this pariah material. You can't compost it at home, and you can't recycle it with other plastics. So unless your city has a specific industrial compost pickup program, which almost nobody has, it is just trash.
Correct. But it costs more, and it makes you feel like you made a responsible, eco-friendly choice. It's greenwashing in its purest form.
And then there's TerraCycle. I see their ads online. Buy this box, put your chip bags and candy wrappers in it, mail it to us, and we will recycle the unrecyclable. It sounds amazing. It sounds like the magic bullet.
It sounds like magic, doesn't it? But Schaub digs into the economics. First of all, it's very expensive. You, the consumer, have to pay for the box and the shipping.
Right.
And the recycling process itself is incredibly opaque. She references a documentary called The Recycling Myth, where investigative journalists actually put trackers in some of these recycling bales.
And where did they end up?
They found them being sent to cement kilns to be burned as fuel.
Wait, so people are paying money to mail their trash to a company that then, in some cases, just burns it?
In some cases, yes. They'll call it waste to energy or co-processing, but at the end of the day, you are just incinerating plastic. And again, it functions as a brilliant shield for the manufacturers.
How so?
A chip company can put on their bag, look, our packaging is recyclable through our partnership with TerraCycle, and it just shuts down the criticism. It lets them off the hook without requiring them to change the multi-layered, impossible-to-recycle bag design.
This all brings us to the very human side of the book. Because Schaub isn't just researching this from a distance, she is living it, and it sounds like an absolute nightmare.
It takes a massive toll on her and her family. And this is so crucial for us to understand. We're talking about systems and data, but for Schaub, this was her life for a year. She describes standing at her sink, washing trash, scraping out containers, drying out plastic bags on her laundry line.
Her family must have absolutely hated it.
There was definitely friction. Her husband was frustrated. But the part that really got to me was her daughter, Greta. She writes about Greta having banana guilt.
Banana guilt. Tell me about that.
Greta was at school, and she ate a banana for a snack. And she was left with the peel. There was no compost bin in the cafeteria, only a trash can. And she just stood there paralyzed, feeling like a criminal because she had to throw a piece of organic matter into a landfill.
That is just heartbreaking. She's a kid. A kid shouldn't have to carry the weight of the global waste crisis on her shoulders because of a single banana peel.
It perfectly, painfully illustrates how the system shifts the emotional and logistical burden onto the individual. To opt out of the system, as they were trying to do, requires turning your life into a full-time waste management job.
It's a second job that you don't get paid for. In fact, you pay to do it.
You do. And the conclusion she comes to really is that zero waste at an individual level is basically impossible.
Impossible.
For 99.9% of the population, living without creating garbage is functionally impossible because the entire infrastructure of modern life is rigged against it. It is not that we are failing to be responsible. It is that the responsibility was misplaced onto us to begin with.
So if the individual is set up to fail, let's zoom out and look at who is actually running this game. We always like to map the system here on the show. So who are the players? Who is winning and who is losing?
Let's follow the money. It always clarifies everything. First, you have the manufacturers, the big consumer packaged goods companies.
The ones making the soda, the chips, the shampoo.
Yes. Their primary incentive is something called cost externalization. They want the packaging to be as cheap as humanly possible to produce. Plastic is cheap, but it's very expensive environmentally and financially to dispose of.
So they get the profit from the sale.
And they hand you the product, and in doing so, they externalize the cost of its disposal. They don't have to pay for the landfill or the incinerator, you do through your taxes.
They get the profit, and we get the bill for the cleanup.
That's the business model. Then you have the fossil fuel industry. As we discussed, they're the pushers. They're driving the supply of cheap ethane from fracking. Their incentive is pure survival. They need plastic to remain a viable industry as the world transitions away from burning their products for energy.
Okay, then you have the waste management companies, the big haulers.
They're in a tricky spot. On one hand, they profit from the sheer volume of waste. They get paid to haul stuff away. But they're also the ones on the front lines dealing with the crisis of having nowhere to put it all.
And the municipalities,
Yep.
cities and towns.
They are the biggest losers in this game. They are bleeding money.
Yeah.
It used to be that cities could sell their collected recyclables on the open market and break even or even make a small profit. Now, since the market's collapsed, they have to pay companies to take it away. But they can't just stop the recycling programs because of the political backlash from citizens who believe in it.
And then at the very bottom of the pile, you have the marginalized communities.
The away and throw away. Schaub talks about Cancer Alley in Louisiana. This is an 85-mile stretch along the Mississippi River that is just lined with petrochemical plants making plastics and other chemicals.
Right.
The people who live there, who are mostly low-income, mostly Black communities, are breathing toxic fumes every single day so that we can have convenient disposable sandwich bags.
That's on the production end. What about on the disposal end?
That's where you see waste colonialism. For decades, we shipped our low-quality, contaminated recycling to countries in Southeast Asia or Africa. They don't have the infrastructure to process it properly, so it ends up in their rivers, or it gets burned in open fields by workers with no protection. We are literally exporting our crisis to people who have the least power to refuse it.
It creates this perfect, vicious loop of dysfunction.
It's a disposability loop. Increased convenience leads to the normalization of waste. If it's easy to toss something, we buy more of it. That leads to increased consumption, which overwhelms the waste systems, which inevitably leads to more leakage into the environment.
And that whole loop is fed by the other one.
By the production loop, more fracking increases the ethane supply. That glut makes plastic cheaper. Cheaper plastic means manufacturers use more of it. More plastic products means the need for disposal increases, which means recycling has to be promoted more heavily to keep us all calm and consuming, which allows production to continue, and on it goes.
Recycling is promoted to keep us calm. That is the key to this whole thing, isn't it? It's a social pacifier.
It absolutely is. It stabilizes a fundamentally harmful system. If we really had to feel the weight of our own waste, if we had to bury it in our own backyards, the system would collapse overnight. We would stop buying this stuff immediately. But the truck comes every Tuesday, and the problem magically disappears.
But it doesn't disappear. And this brings us to the present-day implications of all this, specifically regarding our health. Schaub gets into this, and honestly, it terrified me.
As it should. The conversation is rapidly shifting from litter is ugly to plastic is poison.
She mentions a statistic that I can't get out of my head. We ingest about a credit card's worth of plastic every week.
A credit card every week. Roughly 5 grams.
That is, it's so visceral. I'm literally imagining sitting down to dinner and eating my Visa card.
And it's coming from everywhere. It's in our drinking water, it's in salt, it's in beer, it's in the air we breathe. These larger plastics break down into microplastics, which are now ubiquitous. They've been found in human placentas, in deep lung tissue, in our blood.
And plastic isn't just an inert, harmless little bead passing through our bodies, right?
No, not at all. Plastic is a chemical cocktail. Manufacturers add things called plasticizers to make it flexible, flame retardants to keep it from burning, UV stabilizers to keep it from breaking down in the sun. There are over 10,000 different chemicals that are used in the production of plastics. Many of them are known endocrine disruptors.
They mess with our hormones.
They mess with our hormones, some are known carcinogens, and because of trade secrets, we often don't even know what chemicals are in the bottle we're drinking from or the container our food is sitting in.
So we're running a massive, uncontrolled biological experiment on the entire human population.
That's exactly what it is. And we are seeing the potential consequences in rising rates of infertility, developmental delays in children, certain types of cancers. Schaub makes the powerful point that waste is not just an environmental issue anymore. It is a full-blown public health crisis.
And the old strategy that the system relied on, diversion, just shipping our problems somewhere else,
Yeah.
that has completely collapsed.
The China national sword policy in 2018 changed everything practically overnight. For decades, China was the world's dumping ground. They would buy our mixed plastic and paper. But then, in 2018, they said, we are not taking the world's trash anymore. They set a new contamination limit of 0.5%, which is absolutely impossible to meet with single-stream recycling.
So the ships just stopped going.
Because ships literally turned around on the ocean. Suddenly, Western nations, the US, Canada, Australia, were drowning in bales of worthless paper and plastic that they had no way to process. That's when the facade really cracked. That is why we are all talking about this now. The illusion of Away broke down because Away finally closed its borders.
So now the industry is pivoting to this new thing, advanced recycling. I keep seeing this term. Chemical recycling. Is this the solution, the technological fix?
Schaub is very, very skeptical, and I think rightly so. Advanced recycling is, for the most part, a greenwashed euphemism for burning plastic to create fuel. It's called pyrolysis or gasification.
It's not recycling at all.
It's not circular. It turns a solid waste pollution problem into an air pollution problem. It's incredibly energy intensive, it creates toxic ash and hazardous waste, and it releases huge amounts of greenhouse gases. It's a linear line from the ground to the atmosphere.
This connects so deeply and perfectly to the central theme of our channel, crisis in perception. The crisis here is that our perception of the problem is completely inverted.
It's completely backward. We are trained to perceive the problem at the end of the pipe. We look at our own trash can, we think, I am messy, or we see litter on the highway and think, people are such slobs.
But the reality is that the system is what generates the mess.
We need to stop looking at the end of the pipe and start looking at the beginning of the pipe, the factory, the corporate design table, the political decision to allow this to happen.
Schaub brings up the history of the litter bug campaign. And this blew my mind. I grew up with Keep America Beautiful. I thought it was a noble environmental group with that crying iron-eyed Cody.
Keep America Beautiful was founded in 1953 by a consortium of packaging manufacturers.
The people making the trash.
Companies like Philip Morris, Anheuser-Busch, Coca-Cola, and the Dixie Cup Company. They saw that states were starting to talk about banning disposable bottles and cans because they were clogging up roadsides.
So they needed to get ahead of it.
They needed to change the conversation, so they created a massive public relations campaign to shift the blame from the producer to the consumer. They invented the concept of littering as a moral failure of the individual.
Before that, littering wasn't really a concept.
Not in the same way. If you bought a soda in a glass bottle, it had a deposit on it, you returned it to the store to get your money back, it had value, it wasn't trash.
Right.
But with the rise of disposables, the manufacturers use the same logic as the gun lobby. Guns don't kill people, people kill people. Their version was, bottles don't pollute, people pollute.
It's a magic trick. It's misdirection. Look over here at the bad individual who threw a wrapper on the ground, so you don't look over here at the factory that is pumping out billions of single-use items with no plan for their disposal.
And it worked better than they could have ever imagined. For 70 years, we have focused our environmental efforts on educating the public to be tidy instead of regulating the industry to be sustainable. It is one of the most successful corporate PR campaigns in history.
And the recycling symbol is the ultimate badge of that campaign. It's the thing that stabilizes the whole harmful structure.
Absolutely. If people really perceive the truth that 94% of plastic is just trash, they might demand a ban. They might demand a nationwide return to glass and refillable systems. But the symbol keeps us safe. It whispers to us, it's okay, keep consuming, we have a plan for this.
So Schaub goes through this year of absolute hell. She tries to save every scrap. She fights with her family. She creates what she calls a trash museum in her garage. Does she end on a happy note? Or is it just a year of despair?
It's not a happy ending in the Hollywood sense. She doesn't save the world with her mason jar collection. But she reaches a new and profound clarity. She fundamentally redefines what waste is.
And how does she redefine it?
She realizes waste isn't just used stuff. It is permanent material with no future. She learns to see a plastic bag not as a convenient vessel for her groceries, but as a future geological artifact that will outlast her great-grandchildren. It changes her perception of matter itself.
And she shifts the focus of the solution from personal responsibility to something called extended producer responsibility, EPR.
This is the real policy solution that exists all over the world, just not effectively here. It's a very simple concept. If you make it, you are responsible for it for its entire life cycle.
So if Coca-Cola makes 1 billion plastic bottles,
Then Coca-Cola is financially and logistically responsible for collecting and actually recycling those billion bottles. They can't just dump that cost onto the taxpayer and the municipality.
if they had to pay for the actual cost of disposal, I bet they would redesign that bottle pretty damn fast.
Overnight. The business case for single-use plastic would evaporate overnight. If they had to pay the real end-of-life cost, we would see a massive, rapid return to glass, aluminum, and intelligently designed paper packaging.
Schaub has a great quote about this. She asks, "If you lead a horse to water, can you make him recycle?"
And the answer is no, because the water is poisoned. The system itself is contaminated. You cannot behavior modify your way out of a structural trap.
For our listeners, who we call the learners, this could be a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
We like agency. We want to believe that if we just try harder, if we buy the right bamboo toothbrush, we're helping.
It is tough, but acknowledging the structural constraint is actually, I think, incredibly liberating. It frees you from the guilt.
The banana guilt.
It frees you from the banana guilt. You realize you are playing a game where the rules have been rigged so that you will always lose. And when you realize that, you understand that the only winning move is to stop playing their game and start trying to change the rules.
And that means policy. That means civic engagement.
It means engaging as a citizen, not just as a consumer. It means supporting legislation like the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act, which she mentions in the book. It's a totally different frame of mind.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave the listener with a final thought to mull over. We usually like to end with a provocation.
I think the most provocative thing you can do, based on this book, is to change the question you ask yourself when you're standing in your kitchen. We always stand over the bin, holding some weird piece of packaging, asking, can I recycle this?
Right. Is this a number 5 or a number 1? What about the foil lid?
Stop asking that question. It's a dead end. Start asking a different one. Why was this made in the first place? Why was a material designed to last for 500 years used to hold a sandwich for 20 minutes? Why is there no other option on the shelf?
That reframes everything. It turns the object in your hand from a personal puzzle into a piece of evidence of a broken system.
And living without garbage, as Schaub found, in the current world is not just a lifestyle choice. It's an act of rebellion. It's a refusal to participate in the illusion.
Well, on that note, my brain is officially full, and I will never look at a yogurt cup the same way again. This has been a deep dive into Year of No Garbage by Eve O. Schaub.
A fantastic and infuriating and absolutely necessary book.
Absolutely. Go read it, borrow it from your library. It is so worth your time to get the full, detailed story. This project is free and publicly accessible. If you'd like to support the time, tools, and research behind crisis and perception, you can become a supporter on Patreon.
For a shorter visual overview of this topic, see the mini explainer linked in the description.
If you enjoy this kind of systems-level analysis, please like, subscribe, and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.